How are you guys? Here, let me grab my notebook without bumping the computer too hard. Well, I bumped it, but hopefully not too hard. There we go. How's it going? It's Thursday, I think. It is February 9th. It's just 9:01. So I made it. You guys made it. Let's get this party started. Man, what What a catastrophe I feel like this whole Mr. Criminal defendant situation is. Um, I want to share with you guys, let's see what my phone is doing here. I want to share with you guys more about the situation over there at Wazoo with their police department and how things all fell apart. Um, the department had a complete remodel, shall we say, of the infrastructure or the supervisory roles. So you guys are probably familiar. I've spoken about it quite a bit. That Wazoo 2 years ago had a complaint about one of their sergeants uh, getting wild, getting frisky on the clock in various places on the campus, and he'd been doing it for years, allegedly, but somebody turned him in 2 years ago. Okay. Roughly 2 years ago. And then his supervisors basically slapped him on the wrist. They investigated it, but they didn't talk to her. He says he offered her name. They said no, thank you. And then in their report, they said that they couldn't corroborate his story because they didn't have a name of who this person was. But there was a bunch of them, allegedly. This was his thing. And I have been spelling his name wrong. I don't know if you guys know that I'm 100% dyslexic. It doesn't help me to know that. But anyway, it's Kurt, Kuhrt. I think I've been switching around the R and the H. Anyway, it's Matthew Kurt. So, long story short, his supervisors wouldn't allow him any overtime for a summer, and that was his punishment for being bad. Wow. And then the university says they found out last year, like early in 2022, they investigated his supervisors and their lack of discipline. And so all of his supervisors, the captain, the assistant chief, and the chief, they were all getting severely disciplined, except that they then all resigned. And then Chief Jenkins, who was the police chief at Pullman PD, was resigning over there at the exact same time, retiring, I think is what the words were. And he had like 57 years experience with police work. Of course, not all at Pullman PD. But anyway, so 47 years, 57 years, a long career. Anyway, he resigned. So, he's getting his pension there. And he immediately got hired as the interim chief at Wazoo. And then that was about 6 months ago, I think, a little bit more now, maybe like July-ish of 2022. So the guy, Kurt, Sergeant Matthew Kurt, kept his job until he finally resigned November 1st. His resignation was effective November 1st. So there were a bunch of articles in local papers on November 4th. And some of them weren't that good. Some of them were kind of painting a slanted picture to make the department not look as terrible as I think they deserved to be, portrayed. And I want to read you what I think is one of the better articles. And I'll just start right there. So good morning, everybody. And let me fill in my thing. Oh, you're so cute, Squirrely Burger. I see you said, I can't believe I missed your lives yesterday. They were so good, and I had so much to say. Oh my goodness, that morning one that was 90 minutes long. Yeah, there was a lot packed into that. So hopefully today we won't have such, I don't know how to say it, like thick content. It won't be so condensed because I don't know. It was just a little bit too much TMI for me, honestly. So let's just get rolling with this article. The title of the article, and this is written by a Selena Van Heining. This is November 4th, 2022. Funny that it's published at 2:22, right? PM. And so let's see, what do I want to say about this before I read it? This is November 4th, 2022, 9 days before the grotesque massacre over there at Idaho University. So, all right. Everything I say is my opinion only, simply for the sake of conversation. Even if I'm reading it right off of here, it's simply for conversation, opening up a discussion, hoping to gain education and to possibly be educational for anyone who's interested. And my videos are all made specifically for the YouTube, social media, entertainment platform. So let's see. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. Please hit that thumbs up, share, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. I feel like we're on a roll here, but I don't want to jinx it. GOP Nick says, I missed them too. I went for a walk around the lake in the hills and ended up having to walk around a second one due to the pathway being closed, and walked 14 kilometers with the dog who was fading fast. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's so nice to go for a walk, but when you're not prepared and you're out of water or food, that can be hard. Okay, so predatory grooming behavior. WSU police sergeant accused of sexual misconduct resigns. WSU police sergeant Matt Kurt, and that's Kuhrt, was facing disciplinary proceedings after allegedly engaging in inappropriate activity while on duty and on Pullman campus property. And this ties right in, okay, you guys? Ties right in with the Idaho 4. Pullman, Washington, a Washington State University police sergeant who reportedly engaged in sexual activity while on duty submitted his resignation on November 1st. WSU Police Sergeant Matt Kurt was facing disciplinary proceedings after allegedly engaging in inappropriate activity while on duty and on Pullman campus property. He was placed on home assignment in March when the allegations were first brought to the attention of university leaders. A university investigation ultimately found that Kurt engaged in predatory grooming behavior while in a supervisory role. That's in quotes, and more quotes, engaged in sexual activities while on duty and on university property. The investigation also found Kurt made sexually explicit comments to coworkers and made physical contact with coworkers without consent. Kurt's resignation comes approximately 3 months after Police Chief Bill Gardner, Assistant Chief Steve Hansen, and Captain Mike Larson announced their retirement after being served notice in late July of pending disciplinary action. The discipline against the 3 officers stemmed from failing to advise university leadership of Kurt's conduct. A WSU police officer notified the WSU Police Department command staff of third-hand allegations against Kurt back in December 2020, according to the press release. The informant officer, so that's almost 3 years ago, or that is over 3 years ago, sorry. So 3 years and just over a month. The informant officer received information from a third party who initially advised of possible non-consensual sexual activity. However, the person later contacted the officer to clarify that it had been consensual, but said it happened while Kurt was on his shift. KREM2 confirmed with WSU officials that the person involved with Kurt was an adult and not a student. Despite the claims, which included reports of sexual activities in the presidential suite at Martin Stadium and at the WSU Observatory, the command staff failed to advise CCR as required by WSU policy, the press release stated. Instead, the WSU Police Command staff conducted a departmental investigation and couldn't locate a witness willing to file a complaint against the officer. The investigation concluded that there was not enough evidence to take substantial, let's see, where did that go? Personnel action. The officer did, however, face departmental action for misconduct while on duty. On July 15th, based on the results of the joint investigations, the duties of the chief, assistant chief, and captain were reassigned to others, and the 3 members of the department's command staff were placed on home assignment. The university advised the command staff that disciplinary proceedings were being initiated against them based on the investigation's findings, and they exhibited gross misconduct. Oh, I think I might have put this article link into the description of this video already. If I haven't, I will do it as soon as I'm done. As soon as we're done with the video, that is. Okay, sorry. The university advised the command staff that the disciplinary proceedings were being initiated against them based on the investigation's findings that they exhibited gross misconduct, incompetence, and negligent of duty. That should be dereliction of duty, which sounds a lot worse, but it says negligent of duty. That's not even right English. It would be like negligence of duty. In the response to the claims of sexual misconduct involving the officer, according to the press release, all 3 members of the command staff announced their retirement before the formal disciplinary process concluded. In July, former City of Pullman Police Chief Gary Jenkins and WSU Assistant Chief Don Daniels took over leadership of the department. I also want to point out that Don Daniels had been in trouble for, let's just say, misappropriation of funds a while back. She's the one that is a WSU graduate. And then a few years later, she started working for the department. So she's been there for probably roughly 20 years. But at some point in that 20 years, she was doing questionable things. Under Jenkins and Daniels' leadership, we're seeing a renewed commitment throughout the department to professionalism and strong efforts to improve and rebuild community trust, WSU President Kurt Schultz said in a statement. I want to thank the members of the WSU Pullman Police Department for working together to help ensure the safety and security of Pullman campus. Okay, so this is November 4th that this is written. Then we all know what happened November 13th, and then jump ahead a couple of months to what happened last Friday. Was that the 3rd of this month of February? And a graduate student was scared to death and called 911 while somebody was trying to break into her apartment, allegedly. And then the police came and said that the guy was like ringing her doorbell and trying to open the door, and that, you know, they were going to have extra security since they didn't catch him. And she left campus to get you guys all caught up. So let me get caught up with some of your comments here. I missed a whole bunch. So good morning, everybody. I'm not going to read out your names. Sorry. But you guys know I appreciate each and every one of you. I missed them too. Okay. No, I didn't miss too many comments. Here we go. It's just after 9 a.m. on the East Coast. So many time zones. We only have one in the UK. Wow, that is wild. But yeah, the way that Europe is, like, each country is, you know, like one of our states could fit a few countries in some parts of Europe, right? At this point, I'm wondering who isn't doing shady stuff. Squirrely Burger. Touch DNA on doorbell, fingerprints. Right. Oh my goodness. Annie Ruler. Yeah, like they could have gotten that and put it in their system, but you know, whatever. So my point in reading that is that those 4 officers who'd been with that department for a long while, I haven't looked into it to see exactly how many years each one had been there, but they all had long careers with the University Police Department. They all essentially got themselves resigned, which is just a really, you know, proper way of saying got the axe, right? And then I'm comparing it to the criminal defendant getting the axe allegedly, which we all know that the university cut all ties with him as soon as he was arrested in December. And then there's this so far unsubstantiated letter, unauthenticated letter that says that he got in trouble within 4 weeks of being in his capacity as a teacher's assistant, and that he graded women more harshly than men, and that they didn't like him, and that they were having conferences with him and sending him nasty emails, and then they fired him, right? And so many channels are running with this. I just can't believe it. And then they're just kind of using that as a springboard, that then he went and unalived a cute little Australian shepherd when it started. I think, what was that, like October 13th or something like that. And then a month later, he, went completely wackadoodle and did this to 4 other humans. Okay, it's possible. It's possible that that's a thing. It's possible that the letter will be authenticated for real, right? It still doesn't prove anything. But my point in readdressing this issue with this police department is that those 4 guys have a lot more ammunition, so to speak, to be pissed as shit and extremely angry and want severe retribution and retaliation for what their careers suffered. Their careers suffered. The longer you are employed, the higher your pension is going to be. So they all resigned before they were planning on it. And so their pensions are going to be lower. And then you got Jenkins, who's going to get his nice hefty pension from Pullman PD and a nice salary that could be as high as 6 figures over there at Wazoo. And some people were talking in the chat last week about how much officers make. And just in Ohio, I know that there's police departments in Ohio that pay their officers $60,000 to $80,000 starting out. So there are a lot of numbers being thrown around about police chiefs making 60,000. No. Most police chiefs make closer to 6 figures, in my understanding. And sheriffs are usually elected. Police chiefs are usually appointed. So anyway, let's get caught up with you guys. I'm going to hit your comment, Annie Ruler, because that's a very, very good comment. And also that touch DNA and fingerprints would be something that a police department would have if somebody was an intern there. I don't know that anybody involved in the situation with Idaho 4 was an intern at any police department, but if they were, their fingerprints and their touch DNA would be in that police department. I'm just saying. I think that that's an important point, a very important point. Victims did not want to talk, afraid of, well, Liza, who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be? So, yeah, you cannot expect to get law enforcement in trouble and not have retaliation. You can't. You just can't. Annie Ruler says White Elantra wrecked in Eugene, Oregon was registered to owners of 1122 King, something about Elantras. In Mexico, there is a certain model Jeep preferred for pockets to store pharmaceuticals, muling. Very interesting, Annie Ruler. What a crazy comment. Crazy in a good way. So, I've heard mixed reviews about that white Elantra that was wrecked and abandoned in Eugene, Oregon, about it belonging to the registered owners of that property. The people who own that property, 1122 King Road, are the same owners that own the apartment house that Jack D rented across the street. So, and then I've heard that they lived in Colorado, right? In the city, you get paid more. When I lived in Chicago, they started off at 80K. They used to advertise it on TV, LOL. I've been wanting to share, but not wanting to share because, I don't want to go off on a tangent. But when I lived in Portland, Oregon, which was like 1993, 94, um, there was a position advertised in the newspaper like the entire year that I lived there. Every single time I looked in the newspaper, it was in there. It was a position for an executioner, not for in Oregon, but for across the river in Washington state. So I don't know how much it paid. I never inquired, but they had a firing squad there. And, they would put the black hood on the prisoner that was being executed. And I don't know how many executioners they would have fire at him, but some of them would have blanks and some of them wouldn't. I don't even know what the ratio was, but, it messed with people's heads. It messed with the heads of the hired hitmen, even though it was legal. So I've wanted to mention it at various points and I just haven't. So I thought I'd throw it in there now. DEA friend said in 80s, white Toyota with 3 Mexicans muling got in trouble for profiling. Now bushy eyebrow mules. Yeah, pretty wild. Pretty wild. So, a lot of people in positions of power get upset with social media and YouTube for criticizing civil servants. And they say, oh, you have to be nice. And if you are always criticizing the civil servants, then nobody's going to want to serve. And I disagree. I think that you need to be respectful if situations warrant respect. I think that everybody can handle some healthy criticism. And I think that there's always going to be people wanting to be civil servants because they get paid and they have a lot of power. So it doesn't matter how much turnover there is, there's always going to be people pounding on the door to try to get those positions. So I don't have much sympathy for people in public offices who want to say, whoa, always me. If you know you're doing the best job that you can do, that's all you can do. And people have the right to their opinions, whether they like you or not. And if you have such a weak character that you need people's approval, you really shouldn't be in a position like that, in my humble opinion. When you're in a position of authority, you're going to have to make people unhappy with your decisions every freaking day. You're not going to please everybody, period. So you have to be strong. You have to be confident. You have to know that you're trying your best. And you have to be open-minded, in my opinion, that you can always improve. No matter how good you are or how good you think you are, you can always improve. So, Lucky Lady says that's a hard position to fill. Well, and so it was always advertised. So I don't know if it was just like a revolving door that they were always hiring people and then people were succumbing to the stress and the trauma of it or what. But yeah, you got to think too, like who's going to sign up for it? I mean, I could see like military and police types. But yeah, I think that the police need to be more selective in their hiring. Well, a lot of police departments are extremely selective in their hiring, extremely selective, and they do all kinds of psychological tests as well as physical tests and prolonged interviews, panel interviews. And then when people are hired, they're put on a long probationary period where they can be let go quickly for any reason. But also, if you hire somebody part-time before you give them a full-time position, that's sort of like an extended interview, in my opinion, that it's much better to hire your full-time positions from your internal part-time pool. Excuse me. Having been around a lot of that, yeah, you don't know how crazy somebody is until you get down the road with them, right? whether it's with a police department or you're hiring a kitchen staff or you're choosing a spouse, a significant other, you don't know how nuts someone is until you see it. And sometimes people can keep that stuff under wraps for years. And, most psychotic breaks happen in early adulthood, but there are situations where people are fine, pretty well put together, and then they have a psychotic break at 40 or 50. It's rare. It's very, very rare. But sometimes people have had psychotic breaks in their past and they're not going to share that with you. Even if you get married, they're still not going to share it because they're afraid that you might run. And, it doesn't matter to me if people have had that type of history as long as they're being straightforward and honest and doing their best. I mean, that's all any of us can do, in my opinion. Um, Liza says, I had encountered misogynistic idiots all my life. That doesn't mean those people are murderers. Thank you, Liza. Metaphorically, they are, in my opinion, but I get you 100%. That doesn't mean those people are red rummers. The attempt to connect his issues with women to the red rums doesn't hold nexus. So, oh man, 100%. I can't believe that anybody would use that against him. Again, in an academic setting, especially our judicial system, that's a very, very predominantly male situation. A lot of industries are predominantly male, and law enforcement is certainly one of them. So, and yeah, the sexism in the courts is profound, absolutely profound. Um, So, yeah, to say he's a harsh grader. Oh, and especially to the girls. Oh, he's so mean to the girls. Spec ops will intervene. What's war? um, I'm not sure what you're saying, what's war. So, hey, Susan Dodge, latent lurking. Um, and yeah, for me, there's a lot to think about with, like I was saying, retaliation and retribution with 4 police officers that all lost their jobs and due to that are going to be having reduced pensions for the rest of their lives. Okay. So I'm going to go into a hypothesis here, and this is a huge if. I'm not saying that there's any evidence of this at all, but what if? What if one of those people from Pullman PD thought that somebody in that house at 1122 King Road was involved in getting them in trouble? What if one of the people in that house was one of the many, shall we say, love interests of Sergeant Kurt? That's putting it a little too nice. Sex interests, okay. um, what if there was somebody that lived in that house that had been one of his partners, whether it was coerced or willing or unwilling? What if there was somebody in that house? What if there isn't somebody in that house that was related, but somebody from that police department thought that somebody in that house was related to them losing their jobs? I'm just throwing it out there at the same time that all these people are throwing that unsubstantiated letter from the university. And like I've said in the last day or so, it blows my mind that so many channels are running with that letter when it's not been authenticated. And at this point, in my opinion, it's going to have to be authenticated, whether that's authentic or not. It is not unheard of for any business to write a letter retroactively, and it's allowed. It's 100% allowed. Although I do not think it's allowed to lie about it and not admit, if questioned, that it was written retroactively. But you can backdate something and it's legal. It is legal to backdate something and say, this goes into effect 3 months ago. I'm putting this into effect today, starting 3 months ago. That is legit. So this letter, I have a lot of questions, Very, very special military operation. What's war? I'm so confused. Um, and I will highlight that one. I don't know if you're referring to the Idaho 4 or something else, like the executionary squad. It just so happens he has a female lawyer. I know. They kind of always do that too, to, with people who are accused of sexual assaults, that kind of thing. They often have female lawyers. It makes them look good. And justice is coming soon. Have you seen the post of J is for Justice podcast? There was another woman followed home in Pullman, and she was a student at Washington State, and somebody tried to grab her, and she was going home. I think you're talking about the one that I put the link to in my morning live from yesterday. And yeah, it's actually just chilling to me. It's absolutely chilling. We caught the Defense Department with their pants down. We love balloons. Okay, let's try to stay on topic. I see where you're going with that, but yeah, let's just stay focused with the Idaho case as much as possible, please. The car was parked in front of her apartment, running trunk open. She kept walking her door. Thankfully, she got it shut because he tried to grab her. Right. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday in the morning live. It was a long one. It was 90 minutes. There was so much to cover. And I put the link in the description for anybody who hasn't seen that yet and is interested. So yeah, it was only on February 3rd, Friday, a week ago from tomorrow, that it happened. And giving it more thought, a black car with its trunk open could be a limo waiting to pick somebody up to take them to the airport or something. But not having license plates, and we all know now that in Washington State, it's required to have license plates front and back, and to not have any like brand of car. Like, that was really weird, like to not know the make or the model of the car, to not have any of that information. And yeah, it's really crazy that the police department didn't focus on that. So let's see. Yes, a white truck. Law enforcement has one. Brian Enton tape at cop station and removing evidence. Food truck appeared to be cop at Corner Club. I like what you're adding there, Annie Ruler. Thank you. Okay. I am... Ugh, goodness. What a whack job. Okay, we're done with that. Sorry, I missed that one. I was at the doctor. You're fine. You're not required to see them all. I'm just saying that, yeah, we covered it, and it's really scary. And what I said, in my opinion, what's even scarier than it happening, literally, what's actually scarier than that happening is that the law enforcement tried to gloss over it and act like this girl was just upset because somebody was ringing her doorbell and maybe they were at the wrong house and they were trying to open the door. That's how they tried to make it sound in their response. Man, I don't know what the heck with that what's war whack o doodle, but they're gone. I knew right away from the name. Goodness. Ew, creepy AF, you guys. I was giving them a chance to get on track, and they were just trying to run sideways. in my opinion. I'm curious if you guys have responses to that. Please share. I don't want to spend too much time on it because that's the thing with trolls, is that they're trying to get you off track. So is it somebody from Pullman PD? Is it somebody from Idaho? Just saying. It could be any whack job anywhere from the entire planet. But I think that often these trolls have an agenda. They're like an internet army of sorts, in my humble opinion. Justice is coming soon says, yeah, that seems very suspicious to me, in my opinion. And I think you're talking about the situation on the 3rd, not the what's war whack. Looks like the parents of the SWAT guy has the same looking truck that was following the girls from the club and has a white car as well. Right. I have heard that Brent Copen, I always want to say people's names right, and I have it written down on this other page. Let me look at it. Brent Kopaka, right? Have you guys thought about the fact that we have Brent Mortensen, right? That's the father of Dylan Mortensen, I believe. We have Brent Kopaka, the unalived by SWAT team, PTSD, military Purple Heart guy, served in the Army for our country. And then we have Brett Payne. And that guy, Brett Payne, now I'm forgetting who he is. I'm having a brain fart. Brett Payne is the guy who's in charge of the freaking Idaho 4. Grr. Let me finish my coffee. Maybe that'll help. Sorry. Corporal Brett Payne is the 26-year-old who took 4 hours to get to this quadruple red room, right? Quadruple homicide. And there we've got 2 Brents and a Brett. I don't know. Just the way we have all those Jacks, just the way we have all those Nates and Nicks over there in Truckee. I just thought, Brent and Brett are not very common names. So then we really need to focus on Brent Kopaka and Corporal Brett Payne. As Annie Ruler informed me yesterday, I really didn't know this, that those 2 served in the military in combat in Afghanistan together, allegedly. I knew that there was somebody in one of the police departments that allegedly served with Brent Kopaka. And I honestly didn't know if that was Pullman PD or Wazoo PD. I thought it was one of those, but it's Moscow PD. And it's just so happens to be the corporal that's in charge of the Idaho 4 with his whole 4 years experience under his belt, 2 years with that department. When they've got sergeants, they've got captains or captain, and they've got a police chief that all, in my opinion, would have been better candidates to be the lead, in my opinion. Not that my opinion matters to anybody but me, right? Okay. And yes, that's what I think is suspicious. I think there's corruption, in my opinion. So often, you guys, and we really got to be honest with ourselves, I think, nationwide about the whole cartel industry, because it is rampant and people want to look the other way, especially the people that are profiting off of it, people that are on the take. And the people that are on the take are going to be your large industries and your law enforcement and your governments. Those are going to be the people on the take, getting paid off. And it's my understanding that when you're in a position like that and you're getting paid off, that your payment annually is typically about 3 to 4 times your annual salary for that position. That's how they roll. It's big. It's not like it's, a few $1,000s here and there. It's huge. It's like, a game changer. And that's why people do it, it seems. law enforcement seems to gloss over a lot, except when it comes to the bad guy. And, I'm not saying that the criminal defendant is not guilty. What I'm saying is that we cannot jump to conclusions, and we have to allow the process to happen in the court of law, not in the court of public opinion. That's absurd and ridiculous, in my humble opinion. So, let's see. No trolls allowed. Man, that one was weird. Ugh. I got the creeps right away, but like I said, I was gonna try to give them a chance to get themselves on track, but I wasn't gonna mess with it either. Not playing. No, thank you. Officer Brent made noise complaint visit to 122 King without a real complaint call. Too interested in that home, in my opinion. Annie Ruler, how do you know? I believe you, but how do you know that it was him that made the noise complaint, and or that was there for the visit? I mean, is it like apparent on his badge, or does he introduce himself, or do you recognize his face in the other guy's body cam video? That is very suspicious. Very, very suspicious, especially if there was not a real complaint call. Although, again, as law enforcement, they get to write the book, and there doesn't need to be a complaint call. They can say, we're hearing it, it's too loud. Although typically they will say to you, well, we can't do anything until we get a complaint. Somebody has to file a complaint. It just depends on what they want, right? I agree. If we don't get a hold of the sea situation soon, we will lose our country. Well, Squirrely Burger, that's where a lot of people with insight there think that that's headed, and that we're kind of at a critical juncture where we have to get it on track, or we're going to get past the point of no return, that we're close to that point. Kopaka, why SWAT change from rubber bullets to live ammo? I want to read that explanation. And did they change that day? I mean, I know that historically that they've changed from rubber bullets to ammunition, but on that day, did they go out there with rubber bullets and then switch it over? Because the other thing that's really suspicious about that, Liza, is that the alleged threat was that he was threatening to kill his roommates, and his roommates were able to get out of there without incident, and it was only him that was in there. So if that was the fear, that he was going to hurt his roommates, and that potential problem was removed, it's my opinion that, especially because he served our country and he had a head injury and he had PTSD from serving our country, that it's our country's responsibility to be as appreciative of that as possible, and to give him every service possible. So, yeah, they could have shot him with a tranquilizer gun, right? I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. Let's see. Heather Mosier, we found that Payne went to 1122 for noise complaint, but didn't follow protocol. He didn't log in. Wow. Did you get this from a public records request, or did you see it on a YouTube channel? I'm very curious to get to that info myself. Found out he was there from another officer's report. And so is this the one when Kaylee is in that kind of rust-colored sweater dress, sleeveless mini dress, and they come up to the kitchen door? And isn't that the one where the guy has a handful, or not a handful, but he's got a bunch of zip ties around his wrist? And maybe it's that guy Hunter that has the zip ties. I'm not sure. But is it that call? Is that the one that you're talking about, Heather? I missed the troll comments because I'm listening while doing chores here. Yeah, and I wasn't going to read them out loud. I might have read one out loud that was a little toned down. That was just weird. But I mean, you expect that stuff, right? And that's why we have our mods, and my mods are often busy when I do my morning shows, but I've got my one mod that is able to watch. She's just not able to comment because she's at work and she doesn't want to lose her job. I don't want her to. I don't want her to lose her job either. Annie Ruler, TNT, walked from 1122 Queen, appeared to be teaching young cop, August daylight visit, zero caller information. I will just be straightforward. I have an issue with TNT. I mentioned this the other day. This is one of my issues with her. She's the channel that did like zombie Shanann Watts video or videos. I'm not even sure. I avoided them like the plague. And I just can't. I mean, I know she's made public apologies for doing that, but who in their right mind would ever think for a second that that is a thing? Like mocking a murdered mother of murdered with 3 babies, unalived with a baby in utero and 2 toddlers. Who in their right freaking mind? I just can't. And I just don't have any trust with anything that comes from that. And I really don't want to talk negatively about other channels. I only like to talk positively, like Sif's channel. Oh my goodness, I made it. So yeah, anything coming from her, I mean, I question it. So I'm gonna need to do a public records request myself. And yeah, police don't always document everything, and they're required to. Their job is to document everything. Everything. Why were the police so trigger happy with Brian Kopacka? I think it's Brent Kopacka, with a Kopacka, I think, Squirrely Burger. The outcome should have yielded different results. I agree. And again, I hadn't even thought about a tranquilizer gun. I don't know if that's a thing. It just seems like there's other possibilities. Of course, they've got crisis negotiators that will come on site and try to work with people in hostage situations and such. But he didn't have his hostages. I don't know when they got out of there, but they got out of there early on. So there was nobody in there but him. Another channel has the public records. Do you want the name? If it's not the one that we were just talking about, yes. Yeah, that I try so hard to not go there. I apologize, you guys. Because I do like to be honest and I don't want to pretend like, oh, okay. Because I think it's important, when there's not trust, when there's no faith, no trust, there's just nothing. So I just woke up and saw your message, Liza. So I rushed in here. Aw, you guys are so nice. Thanks for being here. And my nose is like super itchy. I think I might sneeze. Sorry. Annie Ruler says some channels I use their content to fill in the blanks. Horrible she did that about Watts, but the Freedom of Information Acts help. They absolutely help. Absolutely. But again, are they authentic? Are they accurate? So yeah, there's some channels I trust more than others. We don't need to go there anymore. Thanks, Annie Ruler. Squirrely Burger says, I think you missed your calling, assuming you are not already, because you are one heck of an investigator. I agree, Squirrely Burger. And so she's not an armchair detective, right? Annie Ruler, aren't you the one who said that you're a sofa detective? Full-fledged. Squirrely Burger followed Ann Rule. 2012 was juror on Red Room trial, got to assist DA. Second trial was a blast. Wow. Can you say where was that? The one in Northern California, Annie Ruler, like in Shasta County? The Red Room 11 years ago? And yeah, Ann Rule and Bundy, they worked in the crisis call center for King County in the 70s together. And then I worked in the crisis, not in this crisis call center, but the next rung up from that, the crisis intervention center that would take referrals from the crisis call center in right around the year 2000 for a couple of years. And there were many of my colleagues who actually had worked with Anne Rule. I was going to say Annie Ruler, Anne Rule, and even a couple of them that knew Mr. Bundy. So, and I've known, having lived out there in the Seattle area, I've known a handful of people that knew Mr. Bundy. And yeah, they all say the same thing. So nice, so unassuming, so polite, a gentleman, good sense of humor, easygoing, the last person you would ever expect in a million years. Across the boards. I've never heard anybody say the guy was sexist, a harsh grader, none of that. Okay, Sifa says, you guys wanted me to do something with a photo yesterday. Was that I think it might be the one that you already did, Sifa, if I'm on track with what you're referring to. Somebody, was it Blockella or was it someone else? Because I think I sent it to True Crime and Crochet, or Crime and Crochet is my hyper focus, but maybe I was supposed to send it to Blockella. The photo that you cleaned up of the back of the corner club. I'll have to look in the comments from yesterday if we can't discern. So let me highlight that one. And was it that photo or was it a different photo? If anybody here remembers, it's been a whole day, so I'm sure none of us remember, right? Have you heard allegedly Xana's dad did an interview with the Independent and said she got in a fight a week before the Red Rooms, and that's the Red Room. Okay. Rhonda R. I'm fascinated by your comment, and there's a couple typos, but let me try to read it again because I think it's a very important one. Have you heard allegedly Xana's dad did an interview with the Independent and said she got in a fight a week before the Red Rooms, and that's the Red Room. I've kind of heard about it through the grapevine, but I would like to hear more about it and be more specific. And you capitalized allegedly. So are you talking about like a channel called Allegedly? Because we've got that guy who we haven't seen in a while in our chat, allegedly. And then there's also like allegedly Brittany. There's allegedly Innocent. So there's a few channels. And because you capitalized it, I'm wondering if it was a channel or if you're just using the word. And the Independent is probably the name of the newspaper or channel. Because, yeah, we want to be as specific with that as possible. People were mentioning that yesterday, and I had not heard until yesterday that Xana and the eyewitness to the bushy eyebrow unaliver, that they got into it 2 weeks before. Maybe like Xana threw a Halloween decoration or costume or something like that at her. I do not know. I never knew individuals mocked SWATs. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. When I first heard about it, a couple of years ago, I was just like horrified. And I literally tried to never view it. Like I didn't even want to see what it was, but I have seen what it was. And when I learned who it was, I was just like, you got to be kidding me. And then I forgot for a while. I forgot that that's who it was. And then with all of this stuff coming up lately, I was like, yeah, I just cannot imagine a person thinking for a millisecond that that's a freaking thing. It really upsets me. Grr. Shasta County female orchestrated Red Room in terrible pain, bed bound, transcribed, and found foul play. Anne Rule was going to show me how to write. Oh, wow. Yeah, so her first book, Anne Rule, The Stranger Beside Me. I have that book, but I have not yet to read it. And then how many books did she write? Like hundreds? And she loved that guy. Like, he was one of her best friend's favorite people in the world. She knew him for a long time, probably 20 years or something. I mean, she was in such disbelief, even when it was like being proven, she still was having trouble wrapping her mind around it, because they would work all night together. They would sit next to each other, answering the phone, helping people that were suicidal and stuff. So she really bonded with him. Jen, I studied under another student of Ann Rule's. He also wrote a few books as well. Very cool. The corner bar photo, Susan. Okay, how far behind am I? My goodness, that was just 3 minutes ago. Okay, good. I'm not that far behind. Corner bar photo. Sifa says the chat wasn't available yet when I watched the live replay, so I don't know, but it was your afternoon live. Oh, was it in the afternoon live? Okay, sorry about that. And yeah, I don't know how to make an adjustment on anything so that the chat can show up right away. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's like a YouTube thing that they want to like put it through a review process to make sure there's no swear words in it or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, it does that on everyone's channel, to my knowledge. That the chat doesn't show up for at least a few hours, and sometimes like 24 hours, and maybe even sometimes a tiny bit longer than that. It's annoying. I find it frustrating. So Crime Time with Jess did a video on it. Good to know. And see, that's not a channel I'm familiar with. Crime Dive. And nice to know that. And if y'all ever need me to do something, feel free to ask my mod Liza to message me if you see her in here at those times. I don't mind. It's a YouTube thing. Very cool. All right. So, yeah. What if, going back to that, I think that's really big. The what if Sergeant Kurt or any of his supervisors thought someone in that 1122 King Road house had anything to do with them losing their JOBS. What if? What if somebody in that house did have something to do with it? But it really doesn't matter if any of them perceived that somebody in that house had something to do with it. They would be just as angry as if it was actually the truth. So I just think if we're going to pay attention to the your canned letter to the criminal defendant, that we have to pay attention to this serious discipline and pensions reduced by the trouble. Sergeant Kurt resigning November 1st, and this stuff happens on November 13th. Again, the timing. They're trying to use timing of incidences in that unsubstantiated letter, unauthenticated, unverified letter, to prove something. And even if the letter is 100% truth, it still doesn't prove anything. Okay. I mean, that's what you call circumstantial evidence. So, let's see. The body cam starting 20 minutes later. Okay, that's something else. I'm looking at my notes from yesterday, the Gabby Petito thing with that was something that I wanted to cover yesterday morning, or we did cover yesterday morning, with the whole thing with that photograph of her beat up face being released by the family's attorneys at the family's request the night before last or the day before yesterday. Do you guys want to talk about that photo for a second? Because it's been on a lot of channels. I mentioned to you yesterday that I put up a community post about it. And when I look at that photograph, and it's kind of sideways, so her nose looks crooked, and it could be that her nose was crooked, but I don't know if it was. But it does not look like her at all. And, she's got blood smeared on her eyes. She's got a couple of cuts here. What I wanted to talk about is this weird mark on her forehead that is very circular. And to me, with the naked eye, it almost looks like it's an indent, like maybe she was hit on the head or her head was pressed into something. I don't know. And it could be just like a visual thing that it's not an indent, but that it's some type of mark. I'm curious if you guys have thoughts about that. Um, let's see. GOP Nick, I'm glad you said that because I didn't think it looked like her at all. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because, yeah, when I first saw the photo, I actually thought it was like a fake. And then I was learning about it and realizing that she took that of herself. It was a selfie that she took 2 minutes before the first 911 call was dispatched or the caller contacted dispatch. So the timestamp on that selfie is 4:37 on August 12th, 2021. And then the first contact with a caller to dispatch was 4:39. And then the body cams out there on site when they pulled them over start 20 minutes later. So yeah, it's not faked at all. And I think it's great that the family wanted to release it. I think it's great that the attorneys released it. What I think is hideous is that it hasn't been released for the last year and a half. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. And what's also hideous is how long it took any of those officers to ask Gabby about the scratches on her face. It took them a long time. I haven't watched the body cams to like time it, like how far into it, but it wasn't until she's sitting there in the car in the back seat of their SUV, which is a while into the video, maybe 10-15 minutes. And then it's even longer before the guy's like, so what are those scratches on your face? And she almost kind of says, oh, that's just me being stupid. Typically that's what domestic violence victims will do because they are so fearful of the backlash of this call. And this call on the 12th, I think, had a lot to do with Brian Laundrie flying back to Florida on the 16th or 17th. I think it was the 17th of August. So 5 days later. Now the family is saying that they communicated with Gabby on the 12th and that they were going to fly her home on that day. But because there was police intervention, they thought things were going to be okay. And then, why did Brian fly home? And does that even tie in with that couple, Crystal Turner and Kylan Schulte, I think. No, Kylan Schultz. Anyway, Kaylin Schultz, Crystal and Kylan. So people call them Kai Cry, that lesbian couple that was unalived at their campsite on August 14th. And the younger of the couple, the tall one with the long dreadlocks, Kaylin, she worked at the Moonflower, which is where they were hanging out for probably what sounds like 8 hours while Gabby was working on her website and doing stuff on her computer. And Brian was complaining the whole time that he wanted to go for a hike, and they were completely out of water. They wouldn't buy any water in the store. They wouldn't refill their bottles or anything because their system was like they had I think a big like 5 or 6 gallon glass bottle that they would go fill up with really good water at the national parks. But when you're in the desert and you're out of water, you might want water to get there. And, it's just crazy. I mean, because that just adds to the crisis and the emergence of the whole thing and the stress when you're in the desert and you're dehydrated and Brian Laundrie saying, oh, we can't get any water until we get over there to the Delicate Arches National Park where they have our water. We can't get water here or anywhere else because that's our water. That's nuts. And that's the kind of control that Brian Laundrie exerted in that relationship and that Gabby lived with and driving cross country. I can't imagine being in that small of a van with anybody, even my favorite person in the world, like my husband, for that long. What, they were in there for a couple of months already. It was like around the 4th of July, I think July 2nd, that they started their trip. So 5 or 6 weeks. Anyway, um, so they were unalived on the 14th. That wasn't made public until the 16th. I don't think they were discovered until the 16th. And then he flew to Florida unexpectedly on the 17th for 6 days to empty a storage unit to save money. And then Gabby allegedly stayed at that Express Hotel. Was it like a Comfort Inn? Something like that, by the Salt Lake City airport, stayed in the room by herself for 6 days, allegedly. And then when he came back on the 23rd, then, she only lived for about 48 more hours. So, what happened in Florida? What was he doing? What was his story? What in the world? Anyway, kind of going off on my Gabby tangent. I just, it's so sad. And I'm so glad that her parents are taking the legal routes that they're taking. I'm so glad. Where are we? Oh, okay. Thanks. Oh, I'm so glad I'm catching up with you guys. Sorry. I am right here. Rana Jane, I cried. It did look like her nose was broken. Sifa, hello, my sweetie. It looks like she was held down on something. Whoa. Yeah, I mean, it could have been even on the pavement. I'm looking on my computer screen and it looks like a knot on her head. See, I thought it looked like it's concaved, but it also looks to my naked eye like maybe that's just an illusion. So yeah, maybe it is a bump, or maybe it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just dirt. Um, it looks like it was not her. I thought it was made up. Right. And it looks like makeup at first, like the way the blood is smeared on the one side of her face. Um, and things shouldn't still be releasing. It should have all this stuff already. Well, exactly. And think how much more stuff like that is being withheld. Things about the family and when Brian was there. You guys, when I first heard reports about him flying to Florida August 17th, I thought that that was crazy. And I was actually like asking some of the content creators, and they hadn't heard about it. So I let it go. And then it kept coming up. And it took a while for people to realize that he did do that. He did make that flight. And then when he came up with his cockamamie story about cleaning out a storage unit, and people were like, oh, okay, then, and just accepting that at face value, that's ridiculous. And again, he used Gabby's bank card to buy the plane ticket. And, he called it like a shared account, but his name was not on that account. So, and, to give him some leeway because he was helping with this van life adventure YouTube channel. But was he really helping or was he hindering? I mean, I know he was driving and he was taking photos, but he was also, a monkey wrench because he wanted what he wanted when he wanted it. And we all know that doing those things takes time. And she was trying to keep the income going so that they could stay traveling. I mean, she was very motivated. And anyway, um, the cops see her face and do nothing. You know, I just think the cops were so stunned by her beauty and her youth, because at first they probably thought she was like 14 or 15. And they were probably so excited when they found out she wasn't jailbait, which she was 21. And I've always had a suspicion that they were trying to figure out how they could get with that hot babe. Just saying, just keeping it real. I have a dent on my forehead. Getting my head slammed into a headboard by my ex on my left side made my right eye black and blue. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Rhonda. That's awful. That is awful. Squirrelyberg, I'm not sure if I missed it, but when was this picture taken? A date? The picture, the selfie that Gabby took was taken on the same day as the domestic violence call there in Moab. So that was August 12th, I believe, of 2021. And it's time stamped at 4:37 in the afternoon, 2 minutes before the first 911 call contact was made with dispatch by a witness. And roughly 20 minutes before the first body cam videos start when they pulled them over. Um, all right. Heather Mosier, as soon as they saw her make the choke hold motion with her hands, it should have been a done deal. I know, Heather. When I was talking about that, was it yesterday, about how she also showed how he was pinching her face. But yeah, she started to do this. I think she kind of stopped herself, right? I haven't watched it in a long time, but yeah, I agree. Absolutely. It totally should have been a done deal. This photo is heartbreaking to look at it. I know, I know. The whole story is so heartbreaking. It really is. Brian may have threatened her when they were getting stopped. Oh, I'm sure he did. And that's probably when she was cleaning up the blood and everything too. Absolutely. And remember, she said she punched him in the arm and that's why he drove up on the curb. Like, she was taking responsibility for everything. I don't believe she punched him in the arm. I think that was part of what he told her to say, that everything is her fault, right? Cops just need to use common sense, read between the lines with Gabby. They were too busy talking about their ex-wives and making friends with Brian. Like I said, I think, who wouldn't have been so stunned by her natural beauty? And and then to have that, like, counterbalanced with her being, like, so emotional and in such crisis. And it's just horrible for them to put him in a hotel room and send her out into the wilderness by herself in a van to spend the night in a park is insane. Like, that makes me very suspicious that they wanted her off alone in a van by herself. That makes no sense. That is so dangerous. That is so crazy. Um, do you think they filtered the body cam footage because you can't see injuries as much? Very good question, Rona Jane. I've never thought about that. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes, like, the video camera here, it does all kinds of stuff on its own. I was trying to figure out if I could make adjustments so that it doesn't do anything, so it doesn't change things. And I don't know, it might have worked, but sometimes it makes me look like the man without a face, like yesterday. But I think I had too much light yesterday, so I was trying to adjust it to make it not do that. But yeah, the cameras kind of have a mind of their own, and so yeah, their body cam videos just might kind of do that to people's complexions. So you're not going to see great detail. I mean, and they're such a weird shape. Like, these cameras are weird enough, but the body cams are those fisheye cameras. So, they almost make me dizzy and motion sick watching them. Anyway, I want to get to wrapping up. We were at an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm kind of over my limit. I like to keep them a little on the shorter side just so that they're not so overwhelming for all of us. I mean, I enjoy them and I know that you guys enjoy them. So I don't like to cut them short, but I like to try to keep them from being too long. Do you think that okay. The forehead bump looks like the skin missing from that spot. Did she fall down or did he cause these injuries? I think he definitely caused these injuries. The photo looks like it has been touched up. And maybe Heavenly Clouds, that's entirely possible, but I don't think that the family and the lawyers would do that. I don't think that they would misrepresent anything. That's just my opinion. He probably smeared it on her face when he caused the injury. Right, and she's crying too, so if she's just, wiping her eyes, then she's going to be smearing blood if there's a little bit of blood. And yeah, there were some scrapes. I don't know if he got her with his nails, I mean, yeah, he had scrapes and bruises on him too. But that's because they were in a physical altercation. So, because she said he was grabbing her face, right? But those injuries aren't visible in the body cam footage. Well, she could have washed, kind of, what did you say, freshened up while they were driving when they saw the police behind them. I mean, she could have freshened up before that too. Um, but she could have been like putting on some makeup concealer, even, who knows? Those injuries are not visible in the body cam footage. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, you can actually see them, but you have to look closely because the camera's on the side of her and the injuries are over here. And she's probably trying to hide them from the police. And so they're being hidden from the body cam. She was scared to say anything. I know how it feels to be scared. The consequences will be worse. Here, you didn't have to say anything, and they get a DV call, and there's marks. Someone is going to jail, and look what happened within less than 2 weeks. I think that the date of her demise is August 25th on the record, I think. And this was the 12th. So less than 2 weeks. Just like the cop said, like she could be dead within 2 weeks. He said something like that. It was weird. It was creepy. The cop was creepy, and I have my suspicions about him. Ronna Jane, that cop, he's got a long history of stalking and domestic violence. What was his name? Pratt, Officer Pratt. Every cop that was there has been promoted since that went down too. I didn't follow this case. I wish I would have. Well, Squirrely Burger, it's not too late because it's going to trial this next summer. So it'll be on the streets of YouTube a lot. And yeah, I know I wanted to start my channel really badly back then on this case. And then I thought I missed my chance. So, I'm glad that things are coming up with it because I am very motivated to cover Gabby Petito's case. And I followed it very closely when it was happening and when she was discovered and all that. That was nuts. All right, you guys, gonna try to speed read them. That cop was creepy. I didn't follow this case. Happy was smart, and you can see it in her face, in her eyes, that she picked up on his creepiness and made things worse. Her eyes, Ronna Jane, I'm so glad you brought up her eyes because to me, her eyes in that videotape look so freaky. Like she knows that she's in a life death situation. Like animalistically, her eyes are just as scared can be, like way beyond deer in headlights, if you know what I mean. So creepy. So creepy. And that the cops didn't see that look in her eyes when you can see it on the video camera. Give me a break. Okay, Gabby. How cute. Happy. Gabby. I like that. Gabby was smart, and you can see it in her eyes that she picked up on his creepiness and it made things worse. Well, yeah, and she looked so cute in her little, like, skimpy top that had all the X's in the back and the, like, kind of string that wrapped around her waist a few times. It was like low cut in the back, and she had on Gabby, I can't even think of the word now. Baggy shorts, like Gabby shorts, Gabby Babby. It's hilarious. It's like the letters mixed up. Baggy shorts, Gabby baggy shorts. Gonna have to edit that part right out. No, I'm just kidding. It's hilarious. Anyway, she had on those baggy shorts and she looked very cute in them, and she probably had a thong on because with those types of shorts, you don't want to show your panty lines. And she just looked outrageously phenomenal. She was in excellent, perfect health and shape. She was an emotional wreck, and that makes her more vulnerable. And so those cops could have been trying to figure out, well, if this low life scumbag, ugly guy can have a relationship with her and be, her fiance, certainly I have a chance. I mean, guys in uniform know that women like guys in uniform. So they can use that to their advantage if they want, and they can cheat on their wives very easily. There's a lot of women that'll sleep with a guy in a uniform because they just love that whole officer gentleman crap. And there's a lot of guys who want to be in a uniform for that very reason. So just so you guys know, that's the thing. Maybe they have the time wrong on the photo if it just happened right beside where they stopped. Well, the photo is time stamped, and then yeah. So I remember the case. That's the one with the hand and a gator shot a tooth out. Oh. Alistair Grant. It took me a while. So you guys, if you don't follow what she's saying, she or he, I think Alistair Grant's a female, but I could be wrong. I remember the case. That's the one with the hand and the gator shat a tooth out. So yeah, that was kind of the claim, was that the alligators probably ate him, and then they found a tooth because yeah. Oh, the hand coming up out of the garden box. Okay, we need to wrap this one up. I don't think I'll be able to do a second video today, you guys, so it might not be till tomorrow morning, but we can talk more about that hand in the garden box if you want, because that was so freaking crazy. I mean, maybe they took off the injuries of Gabby picture so cops wouldn't look so bad. Just saying. Right. I mean, the cops definitely didn't want to get sued for mishandling the domestic violence call and then her being unalived within 2 weeks. And they got sued. So good for the Petito family. I'm sure they'll use all that money to fight against domestic violence, because that's their whole Gabby Petito Foundation thing. She probably wiped her face off after taking the photo. She wouldn't just leave the blood on her face after she noticed it. I think you're right on the money there, Heather Mosier. Very good comment. Squirrely Burger, I have used makeup, and you can cover it with a little foundation, and also the first 15 to 30 minutes after the red can fade. So I'm going to say she covered it lightly, and then law enforcement failed. Very good comment. Absolutely right on the mark there. I made it, the imprint says, but we're wrapping up. I am so sorry. I'm happy to see you. I see a comment was from 5 minutes ago. Wonder why Gabby didn't call her mom. So sorry for her. She did call her mom that day, Heavenly Clouds. That's come out just in the last week, I think, that she did call her mom and that they were going to fly her home on the 12th. But then when the police were involved, they thought it'll be okay. They actually liked Brian and they trusted him. They thought that, they just got into a thing and everything would be fine. So, of course, that's so tragic that they almost flew her home that day. But then he went home 5 days later, 4 days later, somewhere in there, for almost a week. But yeah, they were planning on not getting married over this whole thing. Gabby baggy shorts. I can't believe how my brain, I'm glad I shared with you guys earlier in the same live about my dyslexia, because that just got my brain twisted into a freaking knot and I couldn't undo it. Gabby baggy shorts. It's easier when I can see it in front of me, but my brain was just not computing what the heck my mouth was doing. That was hilarious. When I was 20, I was with an abuser and he was like BL, and my hubby knew me and the ex back then, and we called it being a Dwayne because that's what my abuser's name was, but my husband helped me feel safe. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it's awful. It's so awful to see people in that situation, or to see yourself in that situation. I know I've had friends that are very hard on themselves for being in bad relationships. Oh my God, she did call. Well, just a horrible event. glad they are suing like crazy. I know, and their lawyer is so good. Their lawyer kind of reminds me of the lawyer that Kaylee Gonzalez, that the G family has, that Shelley, what's his name? Mr. Shelley. Anyway, the lawyer that the Petito family has reminds me a lot of the lawyer that the Gonzalez family has. And you guys, I'm going to sign off and say peace out. Have a great rest of your day. Like I said, might not see you till tomorrow morning. Thanks for being here. And I can't say take the rest of the day off because it's so early, but you know what? I'm going to say it anyway. It's Thursday, and a lot of people start their weekends on Thursday. So just go ahead, take the rest of the day off, start your weekend right now. And make sure you get some exercise and stretch and relax and get some fresh air and sunshine. Have some peace and quiet. Stay hydrated, well nourished, high protein, high produce, more fruit. No, more veggies than fruits. I'd probably end up eating more fruits than veggies, I'll admit it. But try to do the more veggies than fruit. And what else? Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, forgive yourself, and be forgiving to others. And do not allow anyone to treat you with disrespect ever. Never, ever. So thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate you guys. I'm going to end this stream and send you all light and love, and look forward to tomorrow morning, probably around 8:30 or 9. Thanks.